Bhargav sir, many thanks for joining us and speaking to BloombergQuint. Good set of numbers coming in from Maruti as well for this quarter ended September. Industry has been interesting times for the industry. We are doing this conversation for the second time virtually. Want to get a sense from you as well. Although the industry is coming out of the COVID pandemic in good numbers, we saw the sales are up by roughly about 16% year on year. But if you compare the 2 year period, the sales are still down. How would you rate the performance of the industry and for the Maruti? And where are we heading from here now?
Well, I would say that looking at the totality of circumstances and what we were trying to resume from, the total shutdown in April and partly in May, I think we have done very well to get the levels of production and sales which are actually taking place. And that is certainly a positive thing because the states in the beginning, there were these issues of lockdown and containment areas and things and the safety regulations, but these have all been overcome. And today the result is that production is proceeding quite smoothly. And it has been possible for companies, including Maruti, to get back to the levels of output per shift which we had prior to the pandemic. So that is one big issue which has been overcome, and the pandemic in that sense is not there. But the longer term issues will still be how will demand sustain at what level in the longer term.
Right, sir. Right, sir. And also as part of the demand push, we're seeing the entry-level vehicle, the hatchbacks, are seeing an increased demand from as the personal mobility is playing out. What is Maruti more doing to catch on to or ramp up your capability to meet the requirement as well?
No, our strength has always been small cars, small hatchbacks. And small increase in the percentage, I think the percentage has increased by 4 or 5% compared to what it used to be. It's not such a big thing to adjust the production volumes and increase the output of the vehicles which are more in demand.
Right, right. And give a sense of the festive season. The festive season has started. How have been the initial traction, right? And we have seen across the industry, a large number of inventory levels have been set up. The dispatches, as per the quarter numbers, the monthly numbers show that are higher as compared to last year. What is giving that bullishness to the industries? And what kind of impact are you expecting from the sales?
The two aspects which one must consider. Last year was a depressed year anyway. And sales last year were not as good as they should have been. That's one. And so we have a different kind of base from which we are comparing. The second factor is that there was a pent-up demand for many months where people were unable to buy cars. In addition, there was the desire because of the COVID for people to have personal transport and not use shared transport of any form, whether it was the metro, whether it was taxis, or whether it was buses. So these people all got together and wanted to buy cars. So that has created, I think, the demand for cars at this point, allied, of course, to the festival season and the good feeling which monsoon has created this year.
You mentioned in the press briefing one interesting point that you're not sure how the demand will pan out after December, given the fact that what's happening in the overall economy. Customers might want to buy a car, they might not be able to afford the vehicle at this point of time. What makes you say that? And also, will that reflect ongoing demand as well?
No, what I said was that the rural area doesn't worry us at all because the crops have been excellent. The next crop is likely to be also a bumper crop. Rural income levels are going up, and therefore the rural purchasing power is not going to be adversely affected. But the urban areas is where we have some concerns because of the COVID. As you know, a lot of people have lost their jobs. There are some industries which are doing very much worse than what they were doing earlier. You take the entire entertainment industry, take the hospitality industry, you take the travel and tourism industry. These were big industries and they were industries which created quite a lot of demand for cars. And these industries are not reviving and not likely to become like their old selves in the very near future at all. And so there will be a downward effect on the total demand. There is then the question of incomes of people, because incomes have dropped for various reasons as the economy has shrunk. So that's another factor on affordability. We don't know what incentives are going to come in the future. So that also we have to look and see. And of course, how COVID is going to play out in the next few months.
Right. And what about financing and higher inventory levels? I want to touch both the points simultaneously. Are financing concerns because based on our conversation with certain dealers, banks are a bit hesitant in lending because of what's happening?
That is correct. I think between the government and the banks, they have ensured that banks are today not only flush with money, but their mindset has become different and they're willing to take just a little bit more risk than what they were willing to do earlier. And car finance is one area where I think we can distinctly see an improvement compared to what used to exist.
So what kind of impact the financing is having on the overall demand sentiment?
You know, financing is a very major means of people to buy the cars. At least 80% of people buy their cars availing of bank finance.
Can you give me in terms of percentage, how much impact on the demand if the financing is improved? Let's say how much spurt in demand we can see in the industry because of the improved financing and improved sentiments from the banks and NBFCs?
Now means that either interest rates should come down further. Because the banks are now, I think, fairly streamlined in the way they sanction loans. I don't think it will take much further improvement because you don't want banks to start lending money without looking at the creditworthiness of the borrower. Because that in the longer term will have adverse effects. So we don't want that banks should lend money to people who are not going to repay the money. We do want banks to take care that they lend to people who are creditworthy. And as long as they keep doing it and they don't take too much time in doing it and simplify procedures, I think the thing is proceeding quite smoothly at the moment.
Right. And last two small questions are on the inventory. Are high inventories at the dealerships a concern? Because we are back to the same levels of the kind of inventory levels we see in a usual scenario. But the overall the demand scenarios, these are not the usual circumstances for a festive season. So are high inventories a concern?
Well, inventories are lower than what they would normally be at this time. And that's happened partly because of production constraints, and it took time for companies to ramp up their production. And the retail sales have been good. So dealer inventories have remained somewhat lower than what they would normally be.
What kind of numbers or inventory levels are there right now?
This month, October, there's been a build-up. I have to wait till the end of the month figures come along. Because at the beginning of October, the inventory with all our dealers was under 80,000. Whereas the normal inventory should be a month's stock at least. And that means if we are selling something like 1.4 lakhs, then inventory should be about 1.4 lakhs. We had only 80,000.
And last question, sir. What's happening with the UV space? A lot of buzz and excitement with multiple launches happening. What is Maruti doing to increase its market share in that segment and to make it more competitive as well?
The market share is not in our hands. Market share depends very much how the industry grows and how the customers accept particular manufacturers' models. But yes, we will be, according to our plans earlier made, going to continue to launch new models and hope that they are models which the customers find themselves liking and buying in large numbers.
So we'll see more action in terms of Toyota partnership. There's a talks to have the SUV as well, a UV vehicle as well from the market. We'll see the Toyota partnership also helping Maruti increase its share in the UV space?
Let's see something coming in that area first.
Well, what's happening with the Toyota partnership?
It's proceeding. Most of the discussions happen in Japan, so I'm not able to tell you what's happening. But in India, we are supplying them vehicles. They are developing technology for us. We are discussing further steps. But you have to watch and see what further actions and decisions are taken.
All right, sir. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. We will wrap at that note.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you so much for your time and speaking to
All the best.
Thank you, sir.